reality of the war?
Well, I think anyone who works for 20th Century Fox gets that.
Well, I didn't repeat that.
No, I think it's very important to remember. I mean, we did enough research on the show, and we did a lot, to know that there was a vast difference between what we did every day starting at 8 o'clock in the morning and ending at 8 o'clock at night. Between that and what people who bled real blood went through in Korea 30 years ago. We didn't kid ourselves about that. And we knew that as hard as we tried to present the war for what it was, which was a place where people got hurt, we never could really present it for what it was. You couldn't get that heart-thumping reality, bone-crushing reality either. And no matter how much you try to say war is hell, when you put it on television, it's always going to come out war is heck. And we tried as hard as we could to show the emotions and the deprivations of the people who lived through that experience. And all we can say is we did our best to try. We tried, but there's a big difference between what we did and what they did.
I think from the beginning it was the intention of all of us, and I think Alan and Mike and the actors as well as the writers were keenly aware of wanting to do a show that the premise of which was the wastefulness of war, and that basically we were serious, I think, in our intention. We did not want to do McHale's Navy, and that was our objective from the very beginning. And as Alan says, you fall far short of delivering the kind of doing justice to the people that went through the real thing. We hope that as writers and as actors, you occasionally distill the essence and communicate something, which I think is one of the things that people that worked in the show can be most proud of, is that their basic intention was serious.
Any other question? Yes, ma'am.
After doing the show for so long, do you ever confuse your character with yourself?
After doing the show for so long, do you ever confuse your character with yourself?
I think Hawkeye ought to answer that question.
Would you like a follow-up question? All right. Other questions? All right, over here. Is institutionalizing the show really finally putting MASH to rest?
Well, we all needed a rest. That's why they've institutionalized it. Yeah, well, it is. And I think in a way, I think it's one of the things I was looking forward to today. Was, I was telling Gene before, in a way, it kind of emotionally puts a cap on it. It's a terrific honor, and it reminds us all over again. I don't think so much, it doesn't remind me so much of our success as it reminds me of how hard we tried. When I looked at the set before, I was reminded of by the little mementos that are in those rooms that we lived with every day. The little picture of Harry Truman and the little postcard of the woman in the Hawaiian hula skirt that was up on the wall, and little things that we saw every day. And I wondered, as a matter of fact, when we were there every day, because they had become so much a part of our lives, that there was a time when we would, how would we think about those little details, those little corners of our lives in years to come, and would we forget them? And here they are permanently, and I guess if we ever start to forget them, we come here and look at them. But everything is here. They even stuffed a couple of the rats, I think. And it is for me a kind of an emotional ending of that experience. And yet it's able to stay like a scrapbook tucked away where you can go back and look at it and remind yourself of it later.
Yes. In an actor's career.
Maybe what's his name should answer that.
No, I think any association with this show can't do nothing but
add value to the presence of all of us who have been actors, directors, writers, producers on the show. Just for having had the experience, I think we're better.
We also, you know, we worked, I mean, to augment that, we also worked in a lot of different styles on the show. And we went through, in those 11 years, a lot of different emotional states and events that the characters in real life did. And as a result of that, I think that we were given a very unusual opportunity for actors to play so many different sides of the people we were playing that it wasn't as though we were locked into one stereotypical notion of each of those characters. As a result of that, I think that audiences saw us as more like a real person, and audiences came to know those people as real people, and we weren't therefore locked into a one-note stereotypical characterization that we're stuck with now. I think because there were so many sides to those characters after all those years, we had variety and flexibility built into the situation right there, and I think that will not only not harm us, it'll help us.
Another question. Yes, yes, sir. Sorry, did I? Yes, sir.
Can we look forward to a post-war 10-year reunion?
Can we look forward to a post-war 10-year reunion?
I don't think we have any plans to do that, but probably Fox has already sold it. I don't know. Just kidding. No, I don't think there are any plans for that, but you never know. I don't know. It might get real lonely.
The first question when this began this morning was whether or not you people were ready to do it all over again. How could you make the decision to stop, knowing you were going to break the hearts of millions of Americans who want to see you every single night?
How could you make the decision to stop when you were going to break the hearts of how many hundreds of millions of Americans who wanted to see you every night? How could you do that? You can.
It was a nice feeling to know that there were so many people who really did have that feeling that around the country that they felt sadness at the shows going on. And I think we all felt that it was, just as it had been we felt our responsibility to do our best as artists during the run of the show, we also felt it was our responsibility to stop when we thought we might not be able to do our best anymore, because we wanted to give the people something that they could really enjoy. And we didn't want to do a hollow junk food version of what we thought had some value. And the show will go on forever in reruns.
Yes, Alan. The show was an obvious huge success, and I never heard anything negative about the actors of the show. Yet.
Do you want to? May I?
Say anything bad. Like Loretta Stevens.
One always runs the risk in any successful situation of people trying to attach themselves to that success, either by being supporters or detractors. I think the simple answer is that it's nonsense. Okay, one more question.
Somebody wrote a book somewhat negative about me personally, and we had worked together on the show 8 years before he wrote the book. This is all about an answer to your question, and your question was why did he write that? And what happened one day was that in the heat of trying to get the show on its feet in the first year or so, there were a lot of tensions, and there were sometimes at one point between this person and myself, we went off on the side and tried to work things out so that we could do the show in a way that would get things moving and keep them moving. And I think I spoke harshly to him in expressing the way I felt about it. what was going on, and I guess I hurt his feelings. And if I hadn't hurt his feelings, I don't think he would originally what he did, and I apologize for hurting his feelings years later. I didn't apologize for what I said, because I thought I was right in the point I was making, but I think I probably could have been more gracious about the way I said it, and I apologize. And we smoothed that over, and he was gracious in accepting that apology. So it's part of being in the metaphorical trenches with the theatrical. And they yell at each other, and then sometimes they don't like that. A little later, and they have to make up for it.
Let me add to that, yes, if I may. One of the, first of all, it's not true, fortunately or unfortunately, that nobody else had anything negative to say about the show, or the people in it during
A lot of people didn't like mine.
during the years that we were there.
Too tall, too handsome.
One of the important things to me was the show was regarded, and the cast was constantly talked about, as well as the writers, producers, and directors, were talked about as having a family relationship and being a family. I've always tried to draw that out when people bring it up, because if you look at the relationships we had, it was not a family in the Ozzie and Harriet sense, to keep the television analogy going. It was a family that was willing to discuss the tough issues and was willing to confront disagreements and was willing to negotiate through problems. And I think that's the best sense of what a family is. And there were some people, naturally over the years, who didn't fully appreciate that. Yes, ma'am.
On a lighter note, how do you think your characters would feel about having their still donated to the Finest Museum of the World?
Sorry, that's going to be very hard for anybody to hear. Would you do that again, please?
On a lighter note, how would your characters feel about having their still donated to one of the finest museums in the world?
How would your characters feel about having the still donated, as she puts it, to one of the finest museums in the world?
Well, I'm delighted that the swamp has been accepted here at the Smithsonian. We tried to get a spread in House Beautiful. Architectural Digest turned us down. So it's great to...
It's interesting, you mentioned the still. The still is one of the things that was, in fact, inaccurate about it, and unhistorical about the set. Probably one of the only things. And I guess it's being here reflects the historical accuracy about what happened in the past 11 years on television, more than it did in those 3 years in Korea, because as a matter of fact, the supplies were not that hard to get for service people over there, and they had cheap whiskey and that kind of thing. They didn't have to make their own, and there probably was too much drinking going on, as we've heard from people, and we. As a matter of fact, our use of the still reflected that growing understanding as the years went on in MASH. We used it less to celebrate drunkenness and more to understand it and the sources of it, the causes of their need to intoxicate themselves to escape. However, I would like to say that about... I just want to finish what I was saying about this is Bill Christopher. Just what's your wing broken? The show. I think one of the reasons that the sets are here is because of the artists at the 20th Century Fox, the scenic artists and the prop people who are really too many to be able to name, who are really, in a way, historians of popular culture and historians of that time. It's interesting, and on most television, most films, no matter how silly the stuff is that the actors say in front of the sets, often the sets are extremely accurate representations of the periods being represented. And it's especially true here, where we try to be serious-minded about what we're doing, but the sets and the props made a historical statement. In every fine detail, no matter how close the camera got, they were historically accurate. And this is really we shouldn't be here so much as those men and women who brought those sets into being. Yes.
let me just say one more thing about this, because as you're in a museum, you are here in the 80s, looking at the 70s, looking at the 50s. And those tiers of meaning and what is authentic about what we say about them in the 70s is extremely important, because in another 50 or 60 or 100 years, we will want very much to know what the 70s thought about the 50s and what the Vietnam period thought about the Korean period. We'd rather like to know something about all of us as well. One more question.
Where's Bill been? I'd like to know where Bill has been.
I just finished shaving in the lavatory downstairs, and I cut myself rather badly. I've been working with a styptic pencil. But I want to, now that I've got this microphone, I left Los Angeles just a little while ago, and I left the company of Jamie Farr, Klinger, and Harry Morgan, Colonel Potter, whom you know very well. And they are very sorry they couldn't be here, and they send their love.
Bill was late. Couldn't you take it from the top?
Sure. Bill, we'll do this a little faster. Father, excuse me. If you haven't been here through the preceding 27 installments, so that you're just here at the closing installment, and seriously, if there are reflections that you've got either about the relationship between television and a place like this, or you and the show, or the show and the war, all kidding, no. That's perfectly open season, and we got to give them a minute or two to brew. Now, let's have a minute or two to brew.
It's sort of like I say in the confessional, just give me the juicy parts. Now, that's not an original line. I don't say anything that's original. Alan Alda wrote that line for me. And I got a laugh the first time. I thought I'd get a laugh again. I know that this has probably been said, but none of us were aware at the beginning, I think, of what the possibilities were of looking at history. And what I was aware of when I joined the MASH company was that it was a very exciting premise and a very, very talented group of people. And it was such a joy to join that group. And mostly I thought of as an actor, I wanted to work with that group. MASH turned out to be something much more than just an acting assignment, and that was wonderful, and I had no idea, no one did, that it would culminate like this. But in retrospect, I think looking back over all those MASHs, I think it was possible to make a comment on the 50s, and I agree with everything that's been said so far.